Hey, Swanee,
Yes, Shannon.
have you ever heard that people should bite their dogs when their dogs bite them?
I have heard that.
Ah. Have you ever heard that tugging will make your dog aggressive?
I have heard that.
Oh, I've heard that one too. There's a lot of old wives' tales out there in the dog world, and we are talking about a bunch of them today. Welcome back to the McCann Dogs Podcast. Okay, what are we going to talk about?
Today, I think we should talk about dogs. Just to be different. Just to be different. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, it might be a good idea.
Right. Have you ever thought about dogs?
I think about dogs every once in a while, yeah. I mean, once a dog sniffed my hand, and I enjoyed it.
Oh. I thought I saw a dog once when I was driving, but I did a double take, and then it was gone. So
Did it have a poofy tail?
It might have had a poofy tail.
Was it brown?
It might have been.
Look, a dog with a poofy tail.
Your poof. Yeah, your poof.
Your poof. Oh, look at those notes up there. Dog is stubborn.
I saw a stubborn dog once.
We gotta get
Actually, Honda's turned stubborn. Now I do use that word.
I've
It is
also
true.
turned stubborn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it happened on my 47th birthday,
Oh, yes.
which means it's just been this year, but you know.
Well, Honda turned stubborn at 15. Now, if he's sniffing something and he wants to sniff it, I have to use all my might
All your might.
to pull him away because he's stubborn.
All your heft and all your might.
Yes.
Yeah. You should get a Saint Bernard. Hey, so if you were to get any breed of dog that was probably like less appealing to you, what would it be? We always ask what breed you'd get, what appeals to you. But
Oh, but the least appealing dog
Yeah.
breed, I hate to say it, being a Canadian, but the Newfoundland is a very unappealing dog breed to me.
Oh, interesting. Okay, how come?
Well, for one, they're so drooly and they look smelly and they're hairy and they're huge.
And they do smell. They smell really bad.
Yeah.
Don't anybody ever get a Newfoundland? Yeah. No, this is not a good intro. We're still.
Yeah,
we're
this is
still
not our
easing
intro.
into
Yes,
our
yeah.
intro.
And what would your
Oh,
least unappealing?
least appealing dog? Honestly, I think it would be a Saint Bernard.
Yeah.
That's what popped into my head when I thought
Right,
least
yeah.
appealing. And I think that I would stick with that.
Yeah.
Same reasons, drooly, stinky.
Yeah, just a big lump.
Yeah.
Imagine how much big the Puppies would be. Or if they barf.
How much
like,
big? Yeah. You
much
need like
barf
4
could come
bags
out?
to clean up the barf.
oh, yeah. Or they pee on your floor. Oh, you drown. Be like, is there a hurricane coming through? My house is filling.
Oh my gosh, that just made me think of that picture.
Right.
Poor John.
Imagine
And I can't remember her name, but.
imagine if they get diarrhea.
Mm. Yeah, no.
Just too, like,
Yeah.
no.
That's gross.
Yeah.
That's gross.
I think we should start breeding Great Dane or Saint Bernard Newfoundland mixes.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go. Let's do it.
Handing them out to our least favorite friends.
Let's do it. Our least favorite
Yes.
friends. Look at this cute fuzzy puppy. It's only going to be about the size of a small house, so
Right.
you're okay.
Yes. So if suddenly we hand you a puppy one day, you know you're one of our least favorite friends.
Oh my god. Oh my gosh. What sort of gift would you give your least favorite friend?
Probably a Newfoundland puppy.
Oh my
Take care of it.
Oh, that's funny. All right, so here I sit wondering what the strangest wives' tale, if you will,
The strangest wives'
is
tale.
that you have ever heard about dogs or dog training. What's the weirdest one?
The weirdest one.
Yeah.
Okay, Shannon is catching me off guard
Yeah.
here. The weirdest one I've heard.
Yeah.
Oh, Shannon, you're gonna have to let me think. Do you have one while I think?
I actually don't have one top of mind, but I've heard some very strange wives' tales about dogs. And I think that some of those today we can talk about.
Right,
And
yes.
we can just squash right
Right,
away. Because
yes.
these wives' tales come from somewhere and they sort of take on a life of their own and they travel through time and space and generations and they end up becoming sort of this fodder that
Right,
people
yes.
tend to believe in. And we have actually, even though we couldn't come up with our strangest,
The
that
strangest
we've ever heard,
one, yeah.
we have put together some of the most common ones
Right,
that we
yes.
hear that we're going to talk about today.
Yes.
And our goal is to make sure that we are thinking logically about some of these things and dispelling some of the myths that really set people up for a bad understanding of dogs.
Right, yes.
So that's what we're doing today.
Okay, old wives' tales.
Yeah, old wives' tales. We've got a toolbox full of different wives' tales. So we're just going to pull them out at random and then discuss some of those wives' tales and why they are either true or not true.
Right.
I mean, we don't really know. Some of them could be true in there in the box. There's a whole mystery element to what's in there. So let's give it a go. Do you want to start first?
I'm going to start.
Drum roll.
Oh, I got 2.
Oh, don't be greedy.
Okay. Okay. Oh, this is actually, this is an old wives' tale.
Okay.
Yes. Rubbing nose in or smacking with a newspaper when you find accidents.
Oh.
So that is an old wives' tale.
Absolutely.
If your puppy makes a poo in the house, rub his nose in it.
Yeah.
How on earth would that teach your puppy anything but you're scary?
I don't know. See, and I can see some puppies going, lunch, and just enjoying that, and that being a good reward for them, actually.
Right,
so not a good reward, but that being a good reward from their perspective.
Right.
So it's probably not a good idea.
Right, yeah, or smacking them with a newspaper when you find the accident.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, here's the thing.
Yeah.
A lot of the times these things, I think, come from people assuming that their dogs are doing things out of spite.
Right, and assuming their dog can remember and put together. So like if our dogs were that smart, they'd be in charge of us.
The world would be a much more well-defined place, I think.
It would.
There's a lot of variety in humans that makes it hard to really narrow down options. Mm-hmm. So if it was a dog-run world, it would be much more black and white. It wouldn't be nearly as entertaining, though.
It'd be pretty fun.
It would be
fun. There'd be a lot of tennis balls, a lot of treats.
It's true.
A lot of
people napping in random places.
Right, yeah.
If dogs ran the world, naps when necessary would be absolute law.
Right.
You know? That's such an important thing.
Yes.
Being able to be well rested and approach all the rest of your life. And dogs have that one nailed down pretty good once they reach maturity. You know, pups aren't good at it, but
dogs would take us to human parks.
Oh, I'm going to go let them run free in the human park. I love it. And some people just should not be in there.
No.
Some people should not be allowed
in that
human free park.
Right, yeah. Oh, could you imagine if it was just a bunch of unsupervised humans with no laws?
Have you ever seen that? Somebody made a video of what it's like for what it would be like if it was humans in the dog park.
Right, yeah.
And it's really, really funny. And I can't remember all the details. So that's as much information as I'm going to give. But I remember laughing hysterically at it and thinking, oh my gosh, this is so good.
Right.
Whoever made this thing, they're so spot on.
Yep.
All right. Let's get back on
track.
So,
our old wives' tales.
Yeah, so many reasons, too, that this is not a fair thing for the dog. If you do not catch your dog in the act of having that accident, you just need to ignore it. You just need to forget that it happened and not try to chastise the dog in any way, shape, or form about it. If you do happen to catch the dog when they're having the accident, I still wouldn't smack them with a newspaper.
No.
They're learning, right? They need to understand that it's not acceptable to go inside, so I would certainly interrupt it.
Right, yeah.
But I would never discipline the dog.
It's like when I'm teaching Shannon a new computer program, which happens frequently. I don't stand over her shoulder and smack at her every time she makes a mistake.
I would be so upset. That would not be good learning at all.
No. I think, you know, when you go to a store, like I was at a pet store the other day, and the girl had an in-training button on, and the other girl was helping her. But it would have been far more interesting if that other girl had a rolled-up newspaper and was just smacking the in-training girl.
Yeah. You pressed the wrong key. Bam. That'll learn.
But don't even tell her she did the wrong key. Just let the girl figure it out what she did wrong. And that's what we do with our dogs. Yeah. Oh, people.
No, definitely not.
No.
So yeah, if you, what would you do if your dog had an accident in the house and you came around the corner and found it?
There's nothing I can do now. It'd be like, that's my fault. So
How so, Swanee? You didn't pee.
Because I wasn't supervising my puppy. I'm not being a good teacher.
Yeah.
I'm not being a good coach.
Yeah, I'm not being a good leader.
Right? Yes. Yeah. So I've allowed my puppy to make a mistake, and I wasn't there to teach.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take that rolled up newspaper and I'm going to whack myself in the head.
And then when I come over for a visit, I'm going to get whacked too, just for fun. But yeah, and truly, I mean,
who's got newspapers around though?
It's true.
I haven't had a newspaper in the house in years.
It's true. Neither have I. Gonna have to use flyers.
Right. Yeah.
I get a lot of flyers. I need to put one of those signs that say no flyers on my thing because holy cow, there's a lot of flyers in my mailbox.
I would put more flyers in a box.
There you go. So yeah, if you need to smack anything with a rolled up newspaper, if there's an accident, smack yourself in the head for not supervising closely enough with a puppy who was still unreliable with house training habits, and vow to do differently so that you can guide your puppy and you can catch those accidents. And if you do catch the accident, congratulate yourself for supervising well and making sure that you are giving good direction as a good leader in the house. So again, that does not include any sort of physical discipline. It includes maybe an interruption where you pick up the puppy and run them outside to let them finish so that they can learn from that experience, right?
But an out of the blue whacking or an out of the blue sticking their nose in their bathroom, that's just going to scare your puppy. You're going to become unpredictable and a frightening leader to them.
Absolutely.
Yes.
If we do discipline, it needs to make sense to the puppy.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's not going to get us anywhere other than 2 steps back in our relationship building. All righty. I'm reaching in the box. What's in the box? It's their walk. Let them sniff. This is one of my favorites, actually, because I really like drilling down with people on this. I find that a lot of people come into classes with this sort of expectation of wanting to just go for the sniff walk for their dogs. And there's this message out there right now that says, you know, it's the dog's walk. Let them enjoy this walk. What do you think about that?
Well, the dog has to have good walking manners, and then they can enjoy their walks.
Yeah.
So first I want to teach the dog to be good, then the happiness of the sniff walk can happen.
Yeah, there you go. And see, that's my thing too. Do I want to allow my dog to sniff sometimes on walks? 1,000%. 1,000%. They're dogs. I want them to interact with the world in a natural way when it is appropriate to do so. But I don't want my dog sniffing on the sidewalk. There's cigarette butts and there's all sorts of things.
Right,
you know, people are not innately clean out there in our cities.
Right.
I don't want my dogs, I have boys, and I don't want them lifting their legs on everybody's bushes. You know, I personally don't like doing that. It's somebody else's property. Some people work really hard on their properties, you know, and some people are right into their rose bushes with their hand. Well, maybe not their rose bushes, but some people are right into their gardening with their hands. And it's kind of icky if I have my dogs pee on their bushes, right? So I personally only allow my dogs to pee once we get to a space and they're able to, or if we hit, you know, if I'm out for the walk to have them pee, then I make sure I find an appropriate place for them to pee. So, and I'm not encroaching on any of my neighbors in doing that.
Right. And one of my pet peeves is I've seen many people at the park letting their dogs lift their legs on park benches.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Like, what are you thinking?
Nice.
Like, people sit there. Children sit there. Like,
yeah, most definitely. So, I mean, for my own... With my own dogs, I like to have the best of both worlds.
Right.
I like to teach a good street heel that says you have to remain at my side and you really need to keep walking. That's the point of this walk. We are moving through this space and you need to be at my side, not sniffing, not dawdling, not trying to lift your leg on everything. And then when I get to the place where it's like, okay, now we can have some freedom. I release them from heel position. Okay, go sniff. Okay, free dog, whatever the case may be, whatever commands you have. And then they get to be dogs, you know, then they can sniff at will. The only thing that I insist on is that you keep your ears open so that you can listen. And so that when I need you to come back, you do come back.
Right, yeah. Or when you do start sniffing that dead squirrel, I can stop you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it truly is the best of both worlds because it's not always appropriate for them to sniff. And I don't want my dog defaulting to that.
Right.
I want my dog to be able to have a well-rounded life where we can move through crowds of people and dogs and busy spaces without it being an issue. And they can also enjoy sniff time when that's appropriate to do so as well. So it's their walk, let them sniff is only going to help you so much. And I would strongly encourage, even if your dog really doesn't have a lot of outdoor time, for example. So maybe you are a person who has limited control of your dog or you have limited time to spend with your dog. So you feel guilty and you want to let them sniff through the entire walk. I would still find a better balance than that because at some point you're going to want to call them back in. You're going to want to get control so that you can weather whatever it is. You know, whether you're in a busy vet's office, whether you're stopping at a store for some reason and your dog's coming in with you, obviously. Whatever the situation may be, you want to be able to adapt to that situation. And if I'm passing another person and another dog on the street, and I don't want my dog socializing with that other person or other dog, I want to make sure that my dog is in control, under control, and able to move past that distraction without trying to interfere with them. You know, and then from there, maybe I can decide that, okay, that distraction is gone. Okay. And release them to go sniff again. Right. But find a balance and have the ability to say, no, not right now. It's not an appropriate time to sniff, whether it's an area that is typically heavy with litter, you know, cigarette butts. We hear of a lot of dogs eating and ingesting marijuana now.
Yes, yes.
And it's disturbing that, I mean, accidents happen, of course.
Right, yes.
But the sheer scale of stories that we're hearing about this, it makes me wonder how much control there is in that situation with the dog and how much the dog is just loose to sniff.
Right.
And to pick up whatever they find on the street that may or may not be safe for them.
Exactly,
so
yes.
There's solutions in this.
We do hear of people that seemingly intentionally put down, you know, hot dogs with pins in them in the park, things like that. We've heard of that a few times recently now.
It's troubling.
So, you know, if my dog is just indiscriminately sniffing and, you know, and it's on a long leash or a flexi line, I don't know what they're eating over there along that fence line. So for my dog's safety, I like to have them close to me and being watchful.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yep.
I'm with you. Safety, and it's a team sport. So that's the other thing I like to say when people say it's their walk, let them sniff. No, it's our walk.
Yes.
I'm into this too.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I need to be a consideration in this factor too. And we can't make it all about the dog, just like we can't make it all about the child. You know, there needs to be a compromise in there where there's a good balance and there's safety for all, especially. So yes, they're enjoying the walk as well, but I also want to enjoy the walk. So.
Right. Yes. It's like a marriage. There's give and take. It's like, you know, sometimes it's the dog's time, sometimes it's the owner's time, but, you know, each other listens to each other. And
yeah, you bet. There's mutual respect.
Yes.
Mutual respect. Respect is a good word. Good word.
Okay. Our next one's a short one.
Oh.
You can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Oh, that's true. I'm old. No, I'm just kidding. I learn new tricks all the time, actually.
Yes, she does.
I like learning new tricks.
Yes. But not true at all. No, a dog can learn at any age.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times, I think where that came from is an old dog has habits.
Yes.
And habits are hard to break, and people often give up and don't put the work in.
Yeah.
But if we persist and are diligent and consistent, we will break that habit and instill a new habit in the dog, which is the one we want.
Yeah. And it takes an average of about 6 weeks to create a new habit. So keep that in mind when you're thinking, oh, I did it once in a different way and he's still not doing it in a different way all the time. Yeah, that's because it takes time.
Right.
You know, and as an example, is this, you're sitting with your right, it took me a minute there, your right leg crossed over your left. Right. Is that the way you usually cross your legs?
Yep.
So
if I did it this way.
Yeah. Doesn't that feel awkward?
It does. It feels weird.
And if you're not thinking about it, because you've got muscle memory in place.
Yes.
That's the thing. Our muscle memory dictates a lot of what we do. And it's the same thing with our dogs. If you were to suddenly decide, you know what, I don't want to cross my right leg over my left anymore. I'm going to do it the opposite. That would be a hard habit for you to break. Actually, I remember my mother had to go in to get injections. She had varicose veins in her legs, and she had to go in and get injections. And one of the things that they told her was that she shouldn't cross her legs anymore because it put pressure and I can't remember. I was a child. But anyways, she was told she couldn't cross her legs anymore. And I remember she had us all on missions to remind her that she was crossing her legs because she would do it out of habit. It was muscle memory. It was a really hard thing for her to even realize she was doing until one of us in the family said, oh, Mom, you're crossing your legs again. And then she would, you know, jolt out of that position. And I remember it taking quite a while because it was such an ingrained habit in her. And it's the same with our dogs.
Right.
And with her, she had a conscious understanding that she was trying to change this behavior. With our dogs, they don't have that conscious understanding. You know, all they're doing is reacting as their body carries them through life.
Right.
And we need to be there to help redirect that behavior each and every time. Whatever that muscle memory thing is, whatever that habit is, we need to be there to say, nope, we want you to do this instead. And we need to do that again and again and again and again and again until it becomes the new muscle memory. Right.
Yes.
And that's what takes an average of 6 weeks. So it's time.
Yeah.
It's
so
time.
Definitely old dogs can learn new tricks.
Oh, yeah. We're proof of that.
Yes.
Swanee and I are proof. Well, I'm proof of that. Swanee's a spring chicken still. All right. Oh, this is a good one. Kneeing them in the chest to stop them from jumping up. some of these are like old methods too.
Yes. So that is an old dog training method that when a dog jumps on you, just give him a good knee in the chest.
Yeah, or a bad knee in the chest.
So lots of things can go wrong there. And So firstly, you could very much injure your own knee.
Ooh, hard dog.
Yeah. Secondly, you could injure the dog.
Yes.
Thirdly, the dog's going to go, oh my gosh, that was fun.
Yeah,
Let's jump up
will.
more. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, right off the bat, I'm like, my first dog, Quincy, she would have thought that was the best. Rottweiler, you give her physical pressure and say, let's fight.
Yeah.
She's going to come back at you and say, yeah, let's do it. Because that appeals to her nature, right?
Yes.
So I am quite sure that kneeing that dog in the chest would have resulted in her going, yeehaw, I'm going to come back at you harder now.
Right.
And then I would have had another problem to have to deal with in a scenario where there's many other better ways to teach dogs how to remain off and not jump up. And usually it's a combination of approaches. You know, usually it's a matter of teaching the dogs how to greet properly. Right. It's a matter of teaching the dogs that it is unacceptable to jump up, but we have much better methods of showing them how to do that don't risk the injury and also don't risk, the labs and the dogs that like to wrestle and body slam and crash. Are going to be turned on by that knee in the chest. So I might do that to get my dog to like have a rough play with me, right? Yes. I might give them a little, actually I do. When I'm tugging with my dogs, I'll often give them a little, like just lightheartedly, of course, but I'll often give them either smacks in the side or I'll give them a little tap with my foot. Yep. Yeah. And that gets them more ingrained in the game and coming back a little harder and playing a little bit more intensely. And I love doing that with my dogs. So actually, there you go. Yeah. I might as well knee them in the chest.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, what's up?
Could you knee a chihuahua in the chest when it jumps on you?
Goodness, no. No. Oh, I would miss and it would be a disaster. Oh. I think that I would stick to my hardy breeds for any sort of chest kneeing, and it would all be in good fun.
Right, yes.
Yeah, I would definitely not even try it all with a chihuahua.
Right.
Oh, my gosh.
So kneeing a dog is a very reactive, emotional thing to do.
Yeah, and the bigger problem being that the jump up has already happened. Yes. Right? The reward has already happened. Yep. Once that dog gets their paws on you, if it's a reinforcing thing for them, which it is, if they're jumping up to greet you or play with you or whatever the case may be, even if they're jumping up to body slam you and be obnoxious, it's rewarding for the dog.
Yes.
So once they're up, that reward's already happened. We need to be better trainers than that. We need to come at it a little bit earlier in the process so that we can prevent and reward. There is room certainly for correction, but it is not the way I'm teaching anything. You know
what? I'm going to try the knee in the chest when anybody tries to shake my hand from now on. Yeah.
When old friends see you and they come in for a hug,
knee him in the chest.
Just you're done. That's it. Oh my gosh. You know what? You're very you just need your mic.
I know. I'm gonna have to get some limberness in my knees.
Swanee, you're pretty flexible if you were able to kick your mic.
I know. Yeah, my knee. Yeah.
All right. I think we.
No, I was the knee in the chest. You're the.
Were you?
I was.
I was the knee in the chest. Oh man.
We can't both be the knee in the chest.
I thought I was. Did I not read it?
No, okay. I think I did. Huh. Oh, well, we'll fight about it later.
Yeah. All right, Swanee. This isn't a wives' tale about dogs. This is a wives' tale about you. Females should have a litter. All women should have litters. No, Swanee should have a litter. Swanee has lovely offspring.
I do. I had a singleton puppy.
Singleton puppy. He's a wonderful son, and he's being very productive in the world right now, which is great. He's just starting out in his productiveness in the world post-school, but he has been a very productive youth. So
yes. I'm very lucky, very blessed with my son.
So what do you think about that? Should female dogs have a litter?
No,
hey,
a lot of
here. Look, right here. Kneeing them in the chest. I read it.
You did get two in a row. Yeah. Oh, put it in the comments if you knew that.
I knew. I read it. I thought senility. Here it is.
Right, yeah.
Here it is. It's finally starting.
Knocking at your door.
I'm 47. I'm done.
Knee in the chest.
All right.
So no. Females do not need to have a litter. I think the old wives' tale is it calms them down and it makes them feel whole. And no. No, it definitely doesn't calm them down.
I have to say, I feel pretty whole right now, and I've not had a litter. So
yes. So yeah, no, that definitely is an old wives' tale.
Absolutely.
The dog world has enough population. There's enough unscrupulous breeders, puppy mills, things that happened. We don't need to add more dogs to the world. So yes.
Absolutely. It's a fact. And it doesn't necessarily come out the way you want it to come out. I've been in dogs for a long, long time now, and I've never bred dogs because I am terrified beyond to the point where my eyes feel like they're welling up right now. Mm-hmm. I am terrified of getting a female and putting everything that we put into our females, and then something goes wrong in that process and you lose your female, or, I just...
Right.
No.
Yes.
No, it's not for me. It's not for me. And I would never want to risk that.
Right.
So,
and I would also, I've never bred a litter. It's funny, if you talk to most of the professionals here at McCann's, none of us have ever bred a litter.
Yeah.
It's just not something that we want to get involved with.
Yeah.
Also, I feel very responsible that if I bring puppies into the world, I am forever responsible for those puppies.
Forever or forever?
Forever.
Ooh,
forever.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah. So, yes. So if I sell a puppy to Shannon and in 2 years, Shannon says,
I don't want it anymore.
I don't want
you
that
have to
puppy.
Take it back.
Yeah, I would take the puppy back. That's my responsibility.
That's what good breeders do.
Yes.
And truly, breeding is not for the faint of heart.
No.
If you're thinking, I want to breed a litter so my children can experience it or something like that, it is not for the faint of heart. No. Even just, being so involved in the Toller community, there are, Facebook posts all the time, and every once in a while you see something about somebody losing one of the puppies, something happening with a female, all the things that can go wrong.
Right.
And it's devastating. Mm-hmm. And I've seen over the years in Tollers, I got my first Toller in 2001, and I've seen people leave the breeding position because of things like that, because it's just too heavy when it happens.
Right.
And it's so hard to take when you put so much into it, and our good breeders, our heritage breeders, are breeders who are raising awesome puppies that are never going to end up in rescues and puppy mills, etc.
Right.
They put their heart and soul into it. And we as dog purchasers owe it to them to make sure that we are finding one of them, and we're not going with a backyard breeder who doesn't care, who will produce puppies, and those puppies will end up in rescue. Responsible breeders are not somebody that you would ever want to put down. And unfortunately, they have been lumped in with this other section of people who are doing unfortunate things in dogs. Right. So, yeah. Now it's me that's at a loss. Is it your turn?
It's my turn now.
Okay, we gotta get on to happier ones now.
Right.
That one was sad. Thinking about sad things.
Right, yes. Dogs are hypoallergenic.
All of them?
All dogs. No. Some breeds are hypoallergenic. And this is not true.
Yeah.
People are often allergic to the dog's saliva.
Yes.
And all dogs have saliva.
All dogs have saliva.
Yes.
And the dander, there's different danders. So some people might be okay in tolerating one dog's dander and not in another dog's dander. When you mix breeds, you have the opportunity to have, even when one breed is hypoallergenic, I would say non-shedding is a better
word
to use
yes.
than hypoallergenic, because there's no guarantee of a hypoallergenic anything. It all depends on the person, the severity of the allergies, what they're allergic to, etc. Like you said, sometimes it's saliva, sometimes it's other things.
Right.
I actually have started to develop seasonal allergies for the last couple of years. Right. And I've always known that this is a possibility, that you can develop allergies at any point in your life. It's not something that necessarily happens from birth up. And my mother had some pretty severe allergies to a lot of things, seasonal and other things. And I've always sort of thought, okay, there's a possibility that at some point in my life I might develop allergies. And I have definitely started to develop some seasonal allergies where I find myself being stuffed up, and I'm using Neutering to unstuff, and they're nothing serious or anything like that. But our bodies change, right? So even if you do get a dog who is presumably hypoallergenic, quote unquote, you might find yourself still being somehow physically offended by that dog.
Right, yes.
And there's no guarantee in any of that. Definitely if you're getting a breed that is mixed with a breed that has shedding coat versus non-shedding coat, you're probably going to get some shedding. You definitely need to do some grooming, and you definitely need to keep up with maintenance. So make no mistake that a dog who is a mixed breed, who has some shedding fur and some non-shedding fur, that dog is going to take a lot of grooming to make sure you keep its coat healthy and well.
Yes. And those dogs, generally, if you let them go unclipped, they get big and furry. Yeah. And now they're bringing in the outdoors, indoors. So those breeds get grass, they get dust, they get all kinds of stuff in their fur that we can't see.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
Now they're bringing outdoor allergens into your house, trapped in their coat too. So, it might be a non-shedding breed, but they're bringing in stuff that you are allergic to, grass seeds and that.
Absolutely. And you might be okay with that. Maybe you don't care about those allergens coming into your home because you just like the Goldie Poo for being a Goldie Poo, or Golden Doodle for being a Golden Doodle. And you're not necessarily looking for shedding versus non-shedding, et cetera. But just make sure you know what you're getting into when you get into that relationship. Like, I personally, I like a good mucker of a dog, I love tollers. There's a top 10 reasons not to own a toller that has been floating around for as long as I've been in the community. And it is a brilliant piece of information about tollers. And it goes over all the negative qualities of the breed first. And a lot of the times on surface level, people think like, why are you telling me all these bad things about the breed? And it's because, you know what? If you can live with the bad things, of course you can live with the good things. Yes. Of course I love that they're beautiful dogs. Of course I love that they're, bouncy and fun. Of course I love this, that, and the other thing. Can I live with the negatives? All right, I can tolerate the scream. I don't really find the mucker part of it to be that negative because I'm a mucker too. I mean, I do shower quite regularly, but I like to get out in the muck. And I like to explore the world with my dogs. And sometimes that means we come home pretty filthy.
Pretty dirty, yeah.
I'm okay with that. Yeah. If I had a dog that was like, oh, I don't want to step in the mud and want to step around, I would be much more put off by that. So, I mean, any quality is acceptable as long as you know about it heading into it, and as long as you're willing to accept that quality, whether it's positive or negative. And with any research that you're doing for a dog, if you can live with the negatives, good. Because of course you're going to love the positives. I mean, that's a given. Yes. So make sure you know the negatives of the breed.
And definitely, if I was a dog breeder and say I had a supposedly hypoallergenic breed, I would ask somebody, say, come and spend a few hours at my house.
Yeah, good idea.
And I would put them in like a grooming dog area room to really expose them to my breed. Yeah. And if they can tolerate a few hours without symptoms, well, then maybe this is the breed for them. I'd make sure they got licked. I'd make sure they get jumped on. I'd make sure that, I was clippering or trimming the dogs and the hair was flying. And if they're fine, then, they're not, maybe
this
you're not.
Sounds like a great visit.
Right, yes. But because I don't want to get that puppy back.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want the puppy to have a permanent home, and I don't want the kids to go through like, oh, we got to place the puppy because someone's severely allergic.
Yeah.
So really go and spend time, and just don't go for half an hour and pat the dog. Like, get immersed in the dog.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Love it. Very, very sage advice. Drum roll. Okay, they'll grow out of it. That's all it says. They'll grow out of it. This one is so true.
That only applies to collars. Yeah. That's the only thing they outgrow.
Collars, crates. That's it. That's it. That's it. So, I mean, there are certain behaviors that come along with puppies, and that is a fact. And some of those behaviors get a little bit less intense as they grow up. That is also a fact. However, saying that a puppy is going to grow out of a dog type of behavior is like saying that I will grow into
a mature woman.
I was looking for something a little bit more far-fetched, but I guess that's pretty much as far-fetched.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say it's like suggesting that I will grow into a peacock at some point by growing up.
Oh, I think
a lovely and tremendously feathered peacock.
I could see that happening far before the maturity. Yeah.
You know what? You're probably right. But truly, though, dogs don't grow out of being dogs. No. So you expecting your dog to grow into or grow out of bad habits and grow into good habits, it's not going to happen. Whether it's nipping, whether it's digging, whether it's house chewing, breaking, whether it's house peeing, peeing in the house, any of those things, they're not going to grow out of it.
Right.
They're going to get better at being dogs. You know, they're going to get better at the things that they're practicing. Mm-hmm. But in terms of asking them to grow out of bad behavior, grow out of nipping, grow out of chewing habits, you know, that's not going to happen.
Right.
We need to show them how. Mm-hmm. We need to teach them how to appropriately live in a human world. And once we do that, we get the dog that we want.
Right.
You know, the mature, wonderful dog who complies when we ask them to and who enjoys doing it because we've taught them to do so in a fun manner. That's what I wanted to say.
Shannon, next podcast, I want to have you wearing a peacock costume. So people will say, she did grow into one.
She grew out of being human and grew into being a peacock. Well, I'm going to show up as this, which is not a mature adult. So.
No. Wait a sec. We have to wait. There's more conversation here.
Okay.
Are you growing into a peacock or a peahen?
I didn't even know there was a difference.
Well, the peacock is the male.
I had no idea. I thought they were all just peacocks.
No, there's peahens. That's the females or the peahens.
I have never heard of it.
The peacock is the male.
I've never heard of one referred to as a peahen. That is so cool.
The peahens look different.
See, you learn something
They're
new
not
every
as flamboyant as those males.
Oh, you learn something new every day. That is really cool. They're not as pretty, I'm guessing.
They're not as pretty, no.
Do they look very different? Or
I can't remember. I think...
Okay.
They might just be brown. I don't know. Well, when we go back, we're going to Google peacocks.
Yeah. Peahens.
Yeah.
That's something new I'm learning. Thanks for teaching me.
When I lived in New Brunswick, I used to get pheasants at my feeder. And the male pheasants were beautiful. And then the female pheasants were like these brown, scraggly looking things. I'm like, what are those?
And I've actually used pheasants a lot.
We
use pheasants a lot in field training. And it's like, I think most birds are like that, right?
Yeah, it's funny, eh?
Yeah, it really is. It's the males that have to do all the strutting around to attract the females. Peahen. I'll be a peahen next week. All right.
Okay. I think is this my second question? No, hypoallergenic. I don't know.
No, we just did one in between hypoallergenic.
Yes.
Oh, they'll grow out of it. I know, it's because we're just so casual and chatting. It's hard to know when our beginnings and endings are.
Oh, playing tug will make your dog aggressive.
Oh my gosh. It will.
No. Tugging when taught properly with rules will not make your dog aggressive. In fact, it will make you, it'll raise your leadership in the dog's eyes. Yeah. So tugging with rules is perfect. It's a great game.
Yeah. So what does that look like? Tell me what tugging with rules means.
So basically, I have a toy in my hand. The dog is not allowed to leap and grab at the toy. I have to give the dog permission. So I'm going to start the game with a tug or whatever word. And then when we're finished playing tug, I can say, well, when I'm finished playing tug, because dogs might never finish, I'm going to say out or drop it or enough, whatever I want. And the dog says, okay, it's done, and moves off the toy.
Yeah.
Perfect. And they don't leap at it again. The dog basically is listening. I'm starting the game and I'm finishing the game.
Perfect. What about the actual play itself?
The play itself, well, if I felt it was getting too rough, I would stop it. So, so if all of a sudden my dog started, some dogs will shake their heads and really fling. Mm-hmm. And, if my shoulder's sore or if I just don't want it going that far, then I'm going to stop the game before that happens.
What if they accidentally touch you with their teeth?
Oh, that's not happening. So if they some dogs will do this double grip and grab at your hand. Manners always come first. Yeah. I'm immediately going to mark with a reprimand to let them know that, hey, that wasn't good and we're going to stop. Perfect. And I might have to deal with a bit of discipline too. If the dog, if it was an intentional grab, I'm going to basically say to the dog that can't ever happen again.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing. If you avoid tug, you miss out on such a wicked fun way to build relationship, play with your dog, get rules understood with your dog. You miss out on those opportunities by saying, oh no, we're going to avoid that game because he gets too rough or because I've heard it makes them aggressive or Or. There
Back
it
to
is.
the seal.
There it is.
The seal is back.
Had to practice my seal impression there. Tug is so amazing for rewarding. You know, I can use tug in place of a toy or wait a minute. I can use tug in place of food in my training. I can use tug as a quick surprise reward for my dog. I can use tug to build behaviors and drive. There are so many reasons that I want to have tug in my life with my dogs. Right. And I'll tell you, I have field dogs. I also want dogs who have soft mouths. And I teach them how to properly hold and carry toys, bumpers, birds, etc. And they have no problem learning how to be incredibly gentle. I have a workshop I put together called Fetch, basically teaching the preliminary hold behavior with the dog. The cover picture is Ned holding a raw egg. I have no problem at all going from a, raucous game of tug with Ned to having him hold a raw egg and not breaking it, unless, of course, he drops it. Which his hold is pretty good, so he doesn't drop it.
You'll just scoop it up and microwave it, I'm sure.
If he dropped it, I would actually just let him eat it rather than trying to clean it up. Because raw egg is so hard to clean up.
Right, yes.
And he would enjoy eating
a lot of people who raw feed will give their dogs raw eggs, yes.
Yeah, and I do bounce back and forth between feeding regular and feeding raw, so my dogs are accustomed to that. So I know
they can eat the shell, too.
Oh, yeah, he does. Yeah, absolutely. Actually, the first time you give them a raw egg shell, which I did recently with Levon, is one of the cutest things you'll ever experience. Because, of course, it bites a little bit when they go to bite it. Yeah. So they kind of do that, like, playing around with it and bouncing around and play bowing at it and grabbing it and then shaking their head and running. It's just funny. It's just funny watching them try to work through that puzzle. But tug is fabulous for so many reasons, and it is not going to interfere in any way. No, it is not going to create an aggressive dog.
As long as you have rules.
Yeah, exactly.
As long as you have rules.
Yeah, precisely. All righty. I'm going back in.
Okay.
This is the good one. I wish I'd brought my glasses in. These are really small. All right. Correcting your dog will cause permanent damage. Oh, this is a huge one. This is such a big one. And I'm so glad that we're going to talk about this because here's the thing. Dogs learn very operantly, right? They learn that things that are pleasant are things that they should continue doing. And they learn that things that are unpleasant are things that they should avoid doing. And is there a way to correct your dog without causing any sort of fallout? 1,000%. There are many, many ways to do this. Is there a way to correct your dog that is going to create permanent damage? 1,000%. And there's many, many ways to do that. So learn what the right way is for you and for your dog. This is not something that is going to be the same for everybody across the board. However, there are a couple of hard and fast rules that we can tell you that will keep you out of that realm of creating any sort of permanent damage. Don't correct in anger. If you're ticked off at whatever situation is occurring, that's your problem. Right. That is not your dog's problem. You need to control your emotions. You need to put on your big person pants and you need to face that problem with a calm way of doing it. And if you are in a state where you cannot, you owe it to your dog to calmly move out of the situation, deal with your emotions, and then figure out what you want to do in that situation. Right. You are not going to do anybody any good, including yourself or your dog, because you're going to realize after the fact that you did horrible things and you feel bad and you probably put a dent in your relationship with your dog if you correct them out of anger. Right. When we correct, it needs to be something that the dog can understand. So if I'm correcting a puppy for not coming on a recall, for example, I'm incredibly misguided. I need to go and sit back down and do some learning before I get back out there, right? I need to teach the dog how to do a recall, and there's no way that I can possibly get to the point where correction would be warranted when I'm still working with a puppy. Yes. That's not going to be the case. So make sure that you're able to help with direction on that, right? If I use a correction, I want my dog to understand how they can be right in that situation. So if I haven't done enough training with that, I'm never going to use correction yet. I'm never teaching anything by using a correction. I'm teaching my dog using fair methods. You know, just like I wouldn't be smacking Swanee when I'm helping her with the computer problem with the newspaper from behind her if she makes the wrong move. Like, that is not a good way to learn. It's the same with our dogs. And if you are not patient enough to do the training that it takes so that you don't have to get out there and be angry and be correcting out of anger, then you need to figure out some way of helping your dog get that training and that understanding. And there's lots of different setups for training out there. You know, you can send your dog to people for training. You can do the training yourself. There's so many different ways for the dog to get the information, but they need to have the information. It is unfair for us to expect them to do anything that they have not been fairly taught. So timing would be the other factor. I'm rambling on quite a bit here.
No, I'm enjoying listening to you.
Yeah, good. Okay, well, maybe I'll keep rambling, but timing is the other big factor. You know, just like I wouldn't come in the room, see the accident on the floor and correct my dog and expect him to have any sort of understanding of it whatsoever, I'm not going to correct after the fact with anything. It needs to be something that happens in the moment to impact change with my dog. And then I also, one more thing, I also want to make sure that I'm not angry with the dog after the correction. Right. You know, if I correct the dog and now the dog is back on the right track, I need to go from Dr. Jekyll to Mr. Hyde, right like that. And I need to say, oh, you're so smart for being right again. What a good dog. So that he's very clear that, okay, I did that wrong thing. You know, whatever it was. We're not going to talk about specifics because it could be a million different things. But I need to make sure that once the dog is back in the right, I am happy again.
Dogs do not understand grudges.
And they
do not hold grudges.
No, they don't.
So
it's one of the things.
It's a very human thing.
Yeah, it's what makes them amazing. And they're also not spiteful.
No.
So try to get out of your own head when it comes to those things. In a human world, if somebody peed on your bed, I mean, it's not a child, maybe it's an adult. I'm trying to make up this scenario on the fly.
Yes.
It might be out of spite if it's a human peeing on your bed. But it would be the same thought if I said, oh, my child peed the bed in the middle of the night out of spite. It would be the same thing as me saying the dog made that mistake out of spite. They're not spiteful creatures. It's what makes them amazing is that they're honest in everything they do.
Yes.
And if they do something, there's probably a reason for it, but it's probably not the reason that you think if your brain is saying spiteful, stubborn, etc.
Right. Like I have an example. One time I was driving to a flyball tournament with my corgi Gavin.
Okay.
And I stopped at Tim Hortons and I got a buttered bagel.
Buttered bagel. Okay.
Yes. And I was really looking forward to that buttered bagel.
I'm going to guess that you didn't get to eat the buttered bagel.
No, and for some reason I let Gavin, I guess I got to the flyball tournament and I was setting up his crate. So I had let him out of his crate but left him loose in my van.
Okay.
And I was carrying his crate indoors because I didn't have enough hands. And he had gone into the front seat and unbeknownst to me had eaten my bagel.
Aww.
And I remember coming back and I remember how sad I felt that he ate my bagel. But I know he didn't do it out of spite.
Of course not.
He did it because he was a dog. He's a scavenger.
Did it because he's an opportunistic scavenger.
Yes. And it was my own fault he ate my bagel.
Yeah.
So I couldn't get mad at him.
Yeah.
Because even though I was disappointed in him, it was my fault. And all the disappointment was on me.
Absolutely.
So I had no bagel that day.
Well, and here's the thing, like in this scenario here, if you had gotten back, even if you got back and he's just finishing the last crumb of that bagel, so technically, you caught him in the act of that. Do you think that there's any correction that you could administer that would stop him from doing that again in the future?
No.
I mean, there probably is.
It would have to be
would be horrendous.
Horrific, yeah.
And none of us are willing to do that.
No.
The reward has already happened.
Yeah.
If the reward is happening, that is what is telling your dog to do that thing.
Right.
So this bagel being available is telling your dog to eat it. And you know what? If you haven't done the work to say, okay, I need you to refuse food in this situation, and he's well trained to do that, you can't expect him not to eat that bagel. And you definitely won't ever administer any sort of, most of us, 99% of us will never be able to administer any sort of correction that would be significant enough that the next time that same situation presented itself, the dog would go, oh no, I cannot touch that bagel. We can do it beforehand.
Right.
We can create a scenario where it's incredibly valuable for the dog to avoid that bagel. But if we don't actually, if I needed to correct in that scenario, it would be as my dog first leaned in thinking about that bagel.
Yes.
I would need to say, hey, don't you dare.
Right.
And then from there, I might have success, depending on the dog, depending on the personality of the dog. If I have a really soft dog and I do that, he's going to go, okay, that bagel's bad news, man. I don't even want to look at it.
Right.
But if I have a regular dog, if I have a lab who's like, food, food, and I go, oh, don't you dare touch that bagel, chances are his inner dog is going to override as soon as I leave. It's going to take a lot of work for me to create a situation for that dog where he finds it valuable to leave that bagel alone. And I'm probably not going to get there with a tiny little verbal correction either.
Right, yes. And just situationally too, if I had been in my house and left that bagel on my coffee table and just disappeared into the kitchen, Gavin would have left it alone because we've practiced that and practiced that. Don't steal food off the coffee table. It's something that I proactively train. But I had never trained him not to walk through the van and take a bagel off the dashboard or whatever it was.
Yeah, and let's talk about that a little bit because that's something that throws people off too because they go, but he does it at home. He does it at home. Okay, so why is this?
Dogs can't generalize.
Yeah.
So a human can generalize, don't touch that other person's food. But a dog can't do that.
Yeah.
So you take them off that coffee table and put them in a car, they're like, maybe
it's a different picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. I liken the situational nature of dogs to pictures, right? I've seen this picture before in the home on the coffee table. I know it's valuable for me to leave it alone. I know I get in trouble if I go for it. So I'm going to leave it alone. But now that bagel moves to a different picture. The picture is different for the dog. The rules are different for the dog.
Yes.
You need to establish in that new location. And I mean,
maybe car bagels are able to be eaten.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there comes a point where the dog does generalize, but it is far different than how humans generalize. Yes. And of course, being human, we expect the dogs to learn in the exact same way. And then people start saying, stubborn, because they don't understand that the picture for the dog is different.
Right.
And therefore, it's a different situation for the dog. There might be different rules for the dog. And what they're going to do potentially is test the rules in that new scenario. So Iggy did that.
That was Gavin.
Gavin, I'm sorry.
Iggy
yes,
was
of course.
the perfect dog.
Iggy would never do anything bad like that.
No, actually, Iggy would too.
Yeah. but in that different picture, Gavin said, oh, can I? Nobody's telling me I can't.
Right.
Must be okay.
Yes. But if I had taken probably some time and said, hey, leave this bagel.
Yeah.
He would have said, oh, okay, same rules are in the car. Yes. But I didn't take the time and I learned. And I didn't learn, though, because years later, I left a bag of Scotch mints open on the front seat of my car.
Ooh.
And same scenario, I had taken a crate.
What's a Scotch mint?
Oh, they're those little white hard mints that grandmas often have them in the bottom of their purse. So I like them. Yes. So I had Cowboy, my Saluki, and I don't know why she was loose in the van and not in her crate. It was at a fly ball tournament, the same thing too. And maybe it was raining or something, and I'd put her in the van to walk around. And I came back, and she had gotten every single Scotch mint out of the bag and spread them all around the van and had each one in her mouth. So I think she'd walked around and picked up every single one. So they were a sticky, gooey mess all over the van. Oh my gosh. Not one was salvageable.
And so she didn't really like them, but maybe she liked the outside coating or something.
Maybe, but she had I think she had sucked on every one for a couple seconds and then spat it out and then went on to the next.
That's like what a young child would have done.
Yes. It's like, ooh, too minty. Try this one.
Funny.
Ooh, too minty.
Look, a piece of candy. Oh, look, another piece of candy.
And I found mints all over that car for a few days.
Oh my God.
There was an entire bag.
Oh my gosh. Okay, now that is funny. That's a funny story. All right, I like that story. I like young Christine stories, honestly. I met you when you were too mature already. I would have liked young Swan. All right, I think you're up.
You would have seen me looking in my van with a lot of disappointment. What's happened now?
I don't remember my van seats being polka dotted.
Okay. My dog looks guilty. He knows what he did.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
Right.
That's a big one.
So dogs don't feel guilt.
No,
it's a
human emotion, and it's a wasted human
right.
emotion.
Yes. When I went into the car, both Cowboy and Gavin, they didn't look guilty at all. They'd eaten my bagel or licked all my mints. They were quite pleased with themselves. However, I bet I made a face or I went, ugh.
Yeah.
And right away, they recognized, that means the human is not pleased with something. So they might react to that. And we think that means they feel guilty.
Yeah.
But no, they're reacting to our body language. Remember, they're masters of our body language.
Yeah.
And they've said, you know what? When Christine looks angry, you know what? Everyone scatter because Christine's angry. Not that I've ever done anything horrific, but dogs are sensitive to our emotions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If I look at my dog and say, "Do you want a lobotomy?" They're going to get excited.
Right, yes.
If I look at my dog and I start bouncing up and down happily, they're going to get excited.
Right.
If I look at my dog and I look at them with a scowl on my face, or if I make myself look big and angry, they're probably going to go, what's going on? I'm going to go find another place because the vibe around here is not very good.
Yes. And you could be saying something fun. You could have the angriest voice and be saying, "I'm going to give you the biggest dog cookie ever." And they're going to slink and hide away. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And that's dogs. They are primary communicators through body language.
Right.
They are not primary verbal communicators at all.
Right.
They are actually not verbal communicators
right.
at all. That's us. We put that on them, right?
Yeah.
We want them to respond to verbal commands. It is so much easier to teach a dog a signal than it is to teach them a verbal command because they're already in tune with those things. They're watching our body language probably far more than we ever watch anybody else's body language. And there's an ability to interpret those things with them that is probably far better than our abilities as primary verbal communicators. We do notice body language, but it's secondary for us. We're listening for instructions before we're watching for them in most cases. And that's different than the dog.
Right, yes.
So,
and dogs can trick us too.
Oh, yeah.
I remember, I can't remember what dogs it was, but one of my puppies peed on the floor and I wasn't watching them, so it's my own fault. And I stepped in the room and the adult dog started acting all what we would call guilty, slinking and acting weird, and the puppy's bouncing all around. And I know darn well it wasn't the older dog that peed, it was the puppy. But the older dog is saying, "Oh, Christine has that look on her face. She just saw that pee and she's got that look, so I'm going to act guilty."
Yeah.
But it wasn't them that did it at all.
Absolutely. And the puppy's bouncing all over because they haven't learned that that's angry Christine yet.
No.
Once they do, they'll probably take notice too.
Yes.
But because that angry Christine, she's a bear.
Oh, yeah.
She's a bear. Actually,
don't want to cry. You don't want a dose of Christine.
There's only been a couple of times I've seen you angry.
Yeah, I'm not really an angry person.
You're not an angry person at all. No. And I mean, that's in decades of knowing you. So I say that I didn't know young Christine, but that was a while ago. Sorry.
I let things go pretty quick.
Oh, you do. You do. You're so easygoing. You're easy to get along with.
Thank you. I think you are too.
Well, thank you. Oh, here's a good one. Bite them back if they bite you.
Oh.
Come bite me, I dare ya.
I think that's an old wives' tale.
I think that's an old wives' tale too.
Yes.
Yeah. Just like we talked about appropriate correction, right? Correction is not us being angry, and it's not us doing silly things that we think, in a human world, this would be like an eye for an eye, right?
Right,
No, that's not how things work in a dog brain. Correction needs to give direction, and it needs to be something that is meaningful for the dog and can affect change. It's not just arbitrary sort of like, thinking that, a dog biting another dog is retribution. Like, that's not
right. Yes.
So we're going to do that.
I wonder if that stems from like watching a wolf pack where one wolf will snap at the other one snaps back. And
it's humans, right? It's humans trying to interpret and put their own stank on it.
Yes.
For lack of a better way to put that.
Right. It's like the alpha role.
Yeah, exactly. We're trying to mimic dogs, and we really shouldn't be. They don't think we're dogs. They don't think we're other dogs. We need to be humans. We need to be fair, and we need to make sense to them in the way we correct them. And biting them, no.
Oh, that would be yeah. But you know what? I've heard that old wives' tale. People, my dog bit me, so I bit him back.
Yeah.
It's like,
how'd that work out for you?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I think we can move on to the next
that might be our strangest one. That might be the strangest one. Yes.
Might be.
Yes.
We'll have to go back and edit the beginning of the episode.
Right, yes. Don't train your dog until they're 6 months old.
Oh, terrible advice.
Yes, that's an old
terrible advice. It really is.
That is an old one.
Actually, because our methods used to be really reactive and really firm. You know, dog training was very different. It's changed a lot. You know, even just in the time that I have been in dogs, it's changed a lot. And it should.
Yes.
Because we're learning more and more and more about dogs every day. But just don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, like there are still some truths in dogs that are really, really important. And those are the basics of how they learn. You know, being operant creatures, they're going to learn most efficiently in an operant zone. And we can make our methods easier for them to understand over time by learning more about them. So dog training is one of these things that I think you should always be open-minded to change. Always. Hold on to some of the basics. Hold on to some of the true understandings that we have. Those aren't going to change. You know, dogs aren't going to become different mythical creatures that somehow learn differently in the future. They will always still learn in the basic rules of operant conditioning. And we need to keep that in mind. But there's always ways of changing things to make it more efficient. There's always ways of doing things that will make more sense to the dog, maybe be more efficient, maybe quicker, maybe easier on the dog to learn, etc. And we can start that from 8 weeks of age. Their brains are fully developed by then. You know, there's no reason at all, even though they're sort of spastic in their emotional energy when they're that young. They're kind of all over the place. But you start easy with them, right? You're not starting with, you must sit at my side with like all the distractions in the world. You're starting with, okay, let me show you how to sit. Let me show you how to down. Let me do some tricks with you so we can build some learning systems. You know, let me show you how to follow food. Let me show you how to shape. Let me show you how to offer behaviors. You know, there's so many things that we can do with our young puppies. And the best advice you could possibly get is put in the work in the early days, because man, it's easier. We talk, this is no secret. We talk about this all the time. That 8 to 12 week old puppy is in like this super cooperative headspace because all they want to do is stick close to safety instinctually. So they're going to follow you. So if you reward that follow, you know, you're creating a habit that is going to follow you for life. They're always going to want to stick close. If you reward them for not being impulsive, if you start building emotional control, if you start all these lessons that are really good lessons to get in, you're going to have a much easier time. And then I say all that without even mentioning the biggest factor. And that is, if you're not starting obedience training until your puppy is 6 months old, what in the heck are they learning from 8 weeks to 6 months?
Exactly.
Because they're not just sitting on a shelf. And they're learning every day. So what are they learning?
Yes, they've possibly already learned to ignore our voices, to run off, to, And
all these habits that they're going to create, you're going to have to undo if they're the wrong habits. So you're just making your life that much more difficult.
So, sign up for obedience classes.
Start at 8 weeks.
Right away. Before you get your puppy, start looking into what classes could I take.
Yeah, exactly. We actually have a puppy prep guide for exactly that sort of thing. What do you need to do before your pup comes home to be ready? And actually the gold in that guide is that we have umpteen of these sorts of things that we're talking about right now, the fallacies that come along with, you know, dogs in this world. There's so many things, you know, how to set up your house, how to use your crate, the schedules, things like that, that are meant to direct you in the right way and get rid of all of these ideas, you know, all the freedom that people think they need to give puppies, et cetera, all the over socialization that creates reactivity in the older dog, you know, all of the things that are really poor advice out there in society that is going to set you up for a lot more work down the road. So, yeah, that's a good one. All right. It's my turn.
Your turn. Yes.
Okay. Puppies need freedom. Hey, I just said that. So puppies do not need freedom. That's like saying, oh, let your newborn, let them range.
Free range newborns.
Free range. They need freedom. You know, they don't need freedom. They truly don't.
They do not make good choices.
No, they don't. And I would never, you know, you'd never bring a baby home from the hospital or a toddler into a new situation and say, okay, you're free, make good choices, because you wouldn't expect them to make good choices. We can't expect that of our puppies as well.
Why do people expect that of puppies?
I think, you know, I don't really know. I don't really know, but my gut feeling says that we are so repressed and rule focused as a society that we love seeing the freedom of a dog enjoying life. But here's the thing. I mean, watching a Disney movie and living with a dog in real life are very different things.
Yes.
You know, I can watch my dog Skip and see that young Malcolm in the Middle kid. Do you remember this movie?
I know what you mean.
Romping through the field with this Jack Russell puppy who is like this kindred spirit to him. And it's a wonderful movie and it's a wonderful story. And I would watch it again today and I would probably cry and love it just as much as I loved it then. But it's not reality.
No, that would never happen.
In reality, in reality, you know, that puppy hits 12 weeks and goes, okay, I'm getting more bold about life. And you hit that field and he goes, see ya.
Right.
And now he gets hit by a car on the road.
Right.
Or.
Yeah. Or we had one of our students' dogs get lost in the forest. They took it off leash in the forest and off the dog went, never to be seen again. Like, what? Yeah, my heart broke that day. Yes,
absolutely. This is not reality. Reality is we need to teach our dogs and our adult dogs. We can give freedom. You know, if I spend my time with my puppy, and this is true of my life right now with Levon. You know, he is about to turn 7 months of age fairly soon, and he is a fabulous little puppy. And we have spent. Since the time he came home, I started training with him right away, and by about 6 months. I was trusting him with more freedom. So now we can hang out in the living room and I can be on my computer and I know he'll be hanging out, chewing his bone, being a good dog. And he's not running around the living room looking for things anymore because he's matured through that.
Right.
And he's learned more rules in the house in that time that he's matured. And now it's a time, it's not an arbitrary time, but based on his behavior and based on how well he's listening to direction right now, based on the choices that he's making when I'm there supervising him right now, that's what I'm making my future decisions based on. So he's not ready to be loose in the house when I'm not there yet. There's no question about that. And he's not necessarily ready to be loose in the entire house, although I am at the point now where I was just telling you this morning that my new life has become very funny because now, you know, instead of me leaving Levon in his crate or in his pen while I'm doing all the things I need to do to get ready for work, he's mature enough that he can be out and with us. And I know he's not going to have an accident on the floor because his house training is now, knock on wood. I'm sure there's still going to be an accident or two to come because that just happens randomly sometimes. But he's pretty good at saying, I need to get out there. And he knows how to do that now. I need to get through that door to get outside to go to the bathroom. He knows how to do that now. I need to have a drink. I know how to do that now. You know, I don't like him going upstairs in my house, for example, just yet on the upper floor because there's just nothing that he really needs up there. It's just bedrooms and a bathroom and he doesn't need to be up there exploring the bedrooms, etc. So he doesn't.
And your flock of peacocks.
And my flock of peacocks and peahens, yeah. So he doesn't really try to go upstairs because I've never encouraged it. And I've set the rules and set the tone. Anyways, I was laughing. I was telling Swanee about this morning and laughing because now it's Ned, who is fairly mature at 7.5 years old. And he's a calmer dog. You know, they're all a little bit different. He has a much calmer mentality.
Steady Netty.
And Levon is still a bit puppyish.
Right.
And I love that about him. He's a goofball. And he's also got much more energy. So Ned will be standing watching me, waiting for whatever he's waiting for in his little mind, and the pup's running back and forth from the kitchen, around Ned, into the bedroom, and then back into the kitchen. Sometimes he'll go and he'll grab a bone out of the bedroom and bring it into the kitchen, and then he's playing a little bit with the bone in the kitchen as I'm getting all my stuff ready to go to work. And it's just funny because then there's Ned just standing there watching through this whole thing as the pup's doing this, that, and the other, and just being a fun little goofy puppy.
Right.
But here's the thing, like he's learned how to make good choices in all of that. So he gets to have that freedom now because I know the only thing he's going to do when he runs into the bedroom is grab that bone. And if he's a little bit longer than that, I'm going to go and see like what he's up to. This is the bedroom on the main floor. And like, it's a nice scenario because we're all hanging out together getting ready in the morning. This is usually after Kip has left for work already and there's just us hanging out, living life.
Yeah.
And I'm trusting him at this
and
point
because
we've put in the work.
You've put in months of work. It just doesn't happen. You've put in months of work.
Yeah, it's not an arbitrary age, most definitely.
Right.
It's just when he's ready for it. And he's ready for it now.
Yes.
So now I can start to loosen up the reins and I can start to give him that freedom, right? I can start to get him to the point where he'll make good choices even when I'm out of the house, just like Ned. Not ready for that yet, of course. But the freedom comes at the appropriate time, right? Just like we don't say to our toddlers, go make good choices. We don't hand the keys to the ideally really expensive vehicle to our brand new drivers.
Right,
you know, we make them learn how to drive well first so they don't destroy the car, destroy themselves, etc.
Yeah.
You know, all things in good time.
Exactly.
Freedom gets earned.
Right. When our children turn 12, you know, the law says we can leave them alone, but there's a lot of 12-year-olds that should not be left alone at 12.
Absolutely.
No. So and same with your puppy. There's no arbitrary age.
Yeah.
It all depends.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't remember if that was a me or
I think
you.
it's me now.
Oh, go. Oh, is that the last one?
The last question.
That's the last myth.
Okay, the last myth. If you spay or neuter your dog, they'll become lazy and fat. Wow. That's a definite myth.
Yeah,
That's,
absolutely.
Yes, it does change. It does change their hormones, but it's not going to make your dog become lazy and fat.
Definitely not. Ned actually had a forced neuter, an emergency neuter, due to a prostate issue that he had. When was that? Just before Christmas in 2023?
Yes.
So it's coming up on almost a year since he's been neutered. I'm definitely feeding him a bit less because he did start to pack on weight with the amount that he was eating. So I had to cut down his food as soon as I felt, you know, oh, I think I feel too much of a layer around your ribs there, buddy. I cut back his food a little bit. But he has not had any changes in terms of his overall energy level. He is still good old Nettie. He's still, when I turn him on, when he gets excited about something, he's got drive out the wazoo. But the rest of the time, he's fairly calm as his nature dictates in regular life. When he's not working, he's happy to chill out. But that hasn't really changed. That was the same before his neuter as it was after. What I do notice is that there's a lot less sniffing and chattering when we're around here. For example, at the hall, there's lots of intact females, intact males, etc. And he would spend a lot of time before burying his nose in those sniffs and then coming up with that face, you know, that drooly, chattery face that the males get when they're into the female pee. Other than that, though, he still marks just as much. Like, that was a lifelong habit for him already because he was neutered late in life. He still marks just as much. He's still just as sniffy, but just not with that physical reaction in his body that makes him drool and chatter. His personality hasn't changed one bit.
Right, yes.
He's the exact same.
Honda was neutered early, and he has never been overweight a day in his life, and he's never been a lazy dog. You know, his weight is my responsibility. It's not his responsibility.
Yeah, you got it.
So I make sure that he's lean and exercised and motivated to do things. So I don't believe it's changed him at all.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of really good research out there about spay neuter, early, late, etc. There's a lot of controversy with health issues and whatnot, but there's some really good research and some really good findings and some really good information to base your decision on.
Right,
so decide on what works best for you.
Yes.
You know, do all the reading, do all the research. Know that it's probably not going to be a magic fix for any one particular thing, but it might help with some things.
Yes.
We actually did a really good episode. Remember we had Jan on to talk about, because she had an extreme difference with her boy from the point where she decided to neuter him to the actual post-neuter. She had quite an extreme difference with him. And then my experience has been like fairly benign, I would think, in most of the dogs that I have had that have eventually gotten neutered. You know, Reggie was 10. Same thing. It was a health issue that came up in him. He had perianal hernias that came up, and the recommendation, of course, was neuter. With Ned, it was a prostate explosion that he had. Not explosion, not literal explosion, but his prostate blew right up in terms of size and caused some issue with him that he needed to have some emergency surgery for. So there are certainly risks with both avenues, and not to mention the least of which is making sure that you don't have unwanted pregnancy or roaming dogs, etc. But make a decision based on the research. Talk to your vet. Talk to the medical professionals in your life. Talk to your dog's breeder. You know, that's a wealth of information there.
Yes.
And make your decision on whether you want to spay and neuter and when you want to spay and neuter, etc. So
I've mostly had females. Yeah. And I've usually let them have 1, maybe 2 seasons just to make sure they're full grown, and then I spay. Yeah. And Other than they probably grow more fur. They get more of an undercoat.
Yeah.
I've never seen a difference in any of their temperaments.
I should say that. Ned's coat has absolutely exploded since his neuter. And that is to be expected with tollers. It's the way it goes. They have a lot of undercoat. If you have a dog with a lot of undercoat, you're going to be dealing with more undercoat coming out probably if you do neuter or spay. But you know what? It's a small price to pay sometimes for the benefits of that as well. So,
but it is a personal choice. Don't let anyone bully you into into doing it earlier or doing it way too late. It's your it's your dog, and you can spay neuter when you feel it's right.
You bet. You bet. Talk to all of the experts in your life that can help you with that decision, and then come up with the answer that suits you. And on that note, I'm Instructor Shannon.
Instructor Swanee.
Happy training.
The McCann Dogs podcast is brought to you by McCann Professional Dog Trainers. We help dog owners to have a well-behaved, four-legged family member. Please give us a call at 905-659-1888 or visit us at mccanndogs.com. Happy training!